Yo, what's up, family? Before we start the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and share it in everyone that you can. Just out there a little bit more. With that being said, let's get right into the video. Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics will play majority of the upcoming season without their teammate Jason Tatum. Jaylen played a total of 10 games without Tatum last season, with 7 coming in the regular season. I watched all of those games and wanted to detail some of my favorite set/actions the Celtics used for JB. So let's get into the film. All right, how y'all doing? I hope y'all doing good. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, make sure you take your shoes off before you come to the house. And like I said, Jaylen Brown played 10 games without Jason Tatum last season, 7 in the regular season, 3 in the playoffs. In total, Jaylen Brown had a 28.9 usage rate this season. In games with Jason Tatum, it was 26.5. Without Jason Tatum, it was 32.7. So a 6.2% jump in usage rate for Jaylen Brown. And I am just really excited, and I am really interested to see a first option Jaylen Brown season. It's cool to see that Jaylen almost averaged 5 assists last season. And if you have seen the progression of Jaylen Brown from when he first came into the NBA to now that the passer that he is, he made so many good rim reads this season, and it's welcome. And with him being more of the handler in these actions, I assume this season without Jason Tatum, I'm interested to see the jump he makes there, or if it's just a statistical jump because he's getting more reps. So I'm interested to see that. But with that being said, let's get into these first 2 clips. These first 2 clips aren't even sets or actions, but it's probably the most underrated way that the Celtics create mismatches. We know that the Celtics love the killer wheel pick and roll. They love the Spain PNR that can get them a mismatch on the perimeter, or it can switch who the rim protector is to make it easier to drive to the basket and finish. But on this, another example of defense leading to offense. The perfect way for defense to lead to offense is you getting turnovers and you're going down and you're scoring. The Celtics don't force a lot of turnovers. In this version of defense to offense, it's cross matches. The Celtics are a team that usually switches a lot. So Jaylen Brown on this play is guarding Corey Joseph. And let's just say that there's a turnover. Well, I said the Celtics don't force a lot of turnovers. They got one here. Primarily, if Jaylen Brown is guarding Corey Joseph here and a shot goes up, since they are the furthest back here, this is the matchup going down the floor. So when Jaylen sees this, he's going to say, hey, I got Corey Joseph on me. And he's just going to go right down the court, and he's going to either seal or just post up and get great position on Corey Joseph. That's exactly what he does here, and he bodies and scores. Here we got a second example of that. This isn't a cross match in this game because Jaylen Brown was actually guarding Jalen Brunson. He has Jalen Brunson in the corner, shot goes up, we get the rebound. He takes the quickest peek of all time at who's beside him. He sees the Jalen Brunson and he wants the basketball. He comes down, you see he's looking at not Derek White, he's trying to look at Peyton Pritchard. He has his hands ready to catch the ball. Luke Cornett is about to set him a pin down screen, but he sees who's checking him, so he just moves out the way, get right into a post-up. Like a lot of these are very similar to how the Celtics use Tatum. And when you think about the type of scores these guys are, great prototypical size, and they can score at all 3 levels. So most of the play types will be similar. It's just Tatum handles the ball more. A lot of with Jaylen is the matchups, right? How can we get him favorable matchups? Because he absolutely punishes smaller players. And here he goes to work on Jalen Brunson, drops off a nice pass there after collapsing defense to Luke Cornett. Sorry, I forgot to throw some numbers out there, but in the 7 games in the regular season without Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown averaged 23, 6, and 6 with 2 steals. So foreshadowing into the season without Tatum, probably more points. I would say more points, but Jaylen Brown hitting 6 assists would be insane. And this was just such a hard-fought physical series. Everything on the offensive side the Celtics had to work for, and it felt like threes in this series counted as 4 points because Orlando did a phenomenal job at not letting us shoot threes, and the threes that we did got were tough, and we just didn't hit a lot of them. The only help that the Magic did for majority of this series was at the rim, so they pride themselves on their men guarding their yards. But on this play, we got double pins, so we got single pin downs on both sides, right? And what this does, it legitimately isolates Jaylen Brown on Franz Wagner. And again, the Magic pride themselves on guarding their yard. They did not send a lot of man help. The only help primarily in that series that they sent is when our players got to the rim. Look at who's at the rim. Literally nobody. Now, Jaylen Brown can score over our junior. He can score over Paulo. I'd rather him just score over nobody. What this does, right? So we got Al Horford trying to set this pin out for Peyton Pritchard. Corey Joseph does a nice job being aggressive, not letting himself get screened. Top blocks Peyton Pritchard at the end there. So what Pritchard does, he ends up setting a cover screen. A cover screen is when preferably a stretch 5 tries to set an off-ball screen for a shooter and they're being top blocked, like what Corey Joseph is doing here. So that means they can't screen that guy. The cover screen is the guard, once he realizes that he can't get off this off-ball screen, he's just going to screen for the big. And you see how Pritchard kind of takes out 2 guys. Paulo ends up getting over it, but the play isn't for Horford. So on this side, we got Derek White setting the screen for Kristaps, and I love that the small is setting the screen for the big, because that occupies who the rim protector will usually be. So now he's focused on running off ball screens instead of protecting the rim, and now Jaylen Brown just has a clear runway to the paint. He could have just gave the ball to Porzingis, but he makes one move right there and gets past Franz Wagner and gets fouled. All right, so now we're going to look at the Celtics Spain PNR with Jaylen Brown as the ball handler. If you've been around my channel or you just watched any Celtics basketball last season, you know that they love to run this action. So just a reminder, Spain PNR is a type of pick and roll in which there's a back screen for the ball screener's man. So you got Luke Cornett, he's going to be the guy setting the ball screen here on Ron Holland. Payne Pritchard, he's going to attempt to set this back screen on Luke Cornett's man so he can roll to the basket. After that happens, the back screener is going to attempt to come out and pop to the 3-point line to try to get a shot off. The Spain PNR does so many things, and the reason why, and these are some of the reasons why I love it, because it gets you on a perfect play, it gets you 2 mismatches. So if this team is going to play high and they're going to switch this, that gets Jaylen Brown a mismatch on Isaiah Stewart. But what this play does, when Payne Pritchard screens Isaiah Stewart, now the rim protection, it gets you a mismatch on the rim protector. Now, Beef Stew was one of the best rim protectors last season. Instead of him protecting the rim, now it's Marcus Sasser. Now, Jaylen Brown dunked on Isaiah Stewart in this game. So I'm not saying that he can't score on him, but it's much easier to score on Sasser than it is to score on Isaiah Stewart in the paint, right? So the Celtics could either get the mismatch on the perimeter, which will come in the next clip. This back screen, if this back screen is good, this center won't be able to get back to Jaylen Brown going downhill. So he gets that good screen by Payne Pritchard and one by Jaylen Brown. All right, so this time with the Spain PNR, again, we got Jaylen Brown as the handler. And I just want to emphasize like how, not rare, but like how different this is going to be. Jason Tatum had 283 more possessions than Jaylen Brown as a pick and roll handler last season. So there's going to be there's 530 pick and roll handler attempts to go around between Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Payne Pritchard, or whoever's, and Anthony Simons if he's here, right? Jason Tatum had to pause so much. This is going to be a big change for Jaylen Brown, especially being the #1 option for majority of the season. But on this Spain PNR, right, you see, of course, we got the ball screen, but we end up getting a switch on the perimeter here with Jaylen Brown on Goga Badasi, right? So Derek White, again, is supposed to set this back screen. But as soon as he sees the mismatch, he just gets out the way, right? And this leaves Jaylen Brown free reign to an open lane for a dunk. All right, so next we're going to talk about Jaylen Brown as a screener. I love when Jaylen Brown is the screener, especially in those angle pick and rolls where if he sets a good screen, he's able to get the smaller guy on him. And we know what Jaylen Brown does to small defender. So here the Celtics run Ram 77. So in this action, Jaylen Brown is a screener twice. So first we got the Ram action. Ram is an off-ball screen for somebody to go set a ball screen. So Jaylen Brown is going to set the off-ball screen. Kristaps Porzingis is going to come out and eventually set this ball screen for Derek White. So that's the first part. We got the Ram, off-ball screen there, ball screen, and this turns, and this is the 77 part. 77 is just 2 consecutive ball screens. So Kristaps is the first one. Jaylen Brown is going to be the second one here, but what the Celtics do and why it's so important for our stars to be willing screeners is the Celtics preach release angles for their screeners, because the way you can get out of a screen or like just extend your arms on a screen and get an easy path to the paint is so vital. So after Derek White comes off this first screen, Jaylen Brown's going to be the second one. And you see how he's just going to put his arms out to Beasley, right? So he's on the top side, right? He puts his arms out to Beasley and he flips, he turns his hips right there. Jalen Duren is not some world-class rim protector, but he is strong, he is athletic, and you would rather go up against nobody in the paint than him, right? So this is the importance of the Rams. So now they have to end up switching this, right? So now he's not on Porzingis anymore, he's on Brown, and Brown is a second screen. He's gonna scream like Beasley. Now Jalen Duren is stuck on the 3-point line. Brown gets a good release angle on the second screen. He's able to get right to the cup with a nice pass from Derek White, and he gets fouled. All right, so this next clip is just something that I really like. It looks like the Celtics were gonna go to some blind pick action. A blind pick is a dribble handoff under a denying defender. So the Celtics here are trying to get the ball to Jaylen Brown. If this defender is either denying or just playing super high and you can't get the ball to the person you want to get the ball to, somebody will flash under that defender. So again, a dribble handoff under the denying defender. Jaden Ivey isn't technically denying on this play, but he's playing super high. So it's just when this guy is not allowing the pass to get here. So somebody will flash under that guy. this pass would trigger the blind pick action. It looked like they wanted to go to the dribble handoff, but Jaylen Brown just ends up going around Kristaps Porzingis, gets an advantage, gets a 1 to 2 step advantage on Jaden Ivey. Kristaps Porzingis is going to send up a good lob pass. Jaylen Brown gets an and one. All right, so next thing we're going to talk about is stagger action. This is a set that the Celtics also like to use a lot, and it's named after stagger screens. So stagger screens are two of the exact same off-ball screen set for somebody. So you see Luke Cornett, and Sam Hauser going to set the exact same off-ball screen for Jaylen Brown. And this setup just brings so much for variety, and the most common variation for the Celtics at least is stagger twirl. So what stagger twirl is, right, you still got the same off-ball screens, but Jaylen Brown would twirl the first one, and then he'll become the first stagger screen. Luke Cornett would still be here, but he'll twirl it right here, and then Sam Hauser is going to come off this screen and he can get a shot. Another variation of this is they can go stagger deny. So if this is John Collins and he's playing here, he's top locking Jaylen Brown, right? Jaylen Brown can just see this and go backdoor. But what the Celtics do here, right? They have the two screens, and Jaylen Brown's going to use them both, right? So he's going to come up here, use them both, and then they're going to get into a pick and roll. So Jaylen Brown comes off both of them. Luke Cornett, well, not really a pick and roll, but he just comes off and he's able to attack off both of these screens. Luke Cornett's going to roll. He finishes over Walker Kessler. And last but not least, we got a couple examples of killer well pick and roll, something that the Celtics use a lot with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, so they can get a favorable matchup. Do not pay attention to who the defender is on this play and who the Celtics are hunting, but it is just a simple pick and roll where two of the Celtics players are involved and two defenders are usually involved. The rest of the team will just flatten out right here on the baseline. The corners filled, and Luke Cornett will be, not Luke Cornett because he won't be here, but one of the centers will be in the short corner right here. So whoever the Celtics are targeting, whoever that guy is guarding, they will come and screen for Jaylen Brown. The main point of this is to, of course, get a mismatch, but there's so much that comes from teams not wanting a weak defender to be on Tatum and Brown. So the switch avoidance is something that the Knicks were doing a lot. They would try to hedge with Jalen Brunson and they won't let him switch, and it just causes their defense to be in flux, and the Celtics got a lot of open shots. On this play, Derek White sets a good enough screen where they just end up switching, and Jaylen Brown goes at Anthony Simons. All right, so here Jaylen Brown is at the logo so we can get more of a runway. It looks like Peyton Pritchard was going to set a step-up screen here. A step-up screen is an on-ball screen where the screener is facing the opposite baseline. That's that. So you see how he's facing that way. This is a great screening angle to get your guy downhill and to force a switch. But Ron Holland opens up his hips so he can get attached to Peyton Pritchard as they are switching. So Peyton Pritchard doesn't really have to set this. The goal has been met. Whoever we were targeting right now is Jaden Ivey. Peyton Pritchard, he got in the way enough to where the Pistons had to switch this, and Jaylen Brown can go to work. As here, of course, the Magic are fighting extra hard, not letting us get into any screen actions really easily, but a phenomenal screen set there by Derek White gets Jaylen Brown on Cole Anthony, and he goes over. As here against the Knicks in the playoffs, we talked about the Knicks switch avoidance, but here they just end up switching it, and Jaylen Brown takes advantage of this. But that is a video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe, and share it in everyone that you can. Just show out there a little bit more. I will see you guys in the next video. This is Nick. Peace.